My only question, I assume it's not a PG certificate for a podcast. We can swear if we need to.
Yep.
Yeah, good.
Need to, want to, just
Yeah.
haven't done it in a while.
All right. Yeah. No, I don't. I do it fairly frequently. So. Especially with my dog. I got an old dog. He's lovely, but he's going a bit senile, and they bark, and he's going a bit deaf. And we love him, but it's shut the fuck up. Bless him. You might hear that in the background.
I do it with my cat. Walking downstairs in the morning, and she likes to stop right where my feet are above the very top step of the stairs.
Oh, they'll try and kill you.
You fucking bitch.
That's why you shouldn't have cats.
Is it the same color as your stair treads? It's like camouflage, trip hazard, yeah?
Actually, she's gray, and yeah, it's close. It's very close, and it's dark out, so it's.
Yeah.
And she knows that you can't see her.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's get started. Welcome to Dead Headspace, now a part of the Silver Shamrock Horrorcast, a podcast network that includes Killing Time with Silver Shamrock and Unburying the Dead, where we exhume classic horror paperbacks for the new generation. Speaking of which, the next one, episode 3, comes out April 1st. That will be with a first-time guest host, Well-Read Beard. He'll be joining me, Brennan, and Ken McKinley, where we dissect and generally talk about Ron Kelly, his Fear, his magnum opus from Zebra.
I like the way you phrased it, so it sounds like we're talking about Ronald Kelly's fears, like what he's afraid of.
I liked how you said you're going to dissect Ron Kelly. That's good.
Yeah.
I want to see that one.
Live on the air.
I gotta get some more likes and hits. I gotta go viral. So kill a classic horror author. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Ghana, and all other major platforms, which now includes YouTube. That's right. You can now watch your favorite episodes, including this one, by searching for Dead Headspace. I'm your host, Patrick R. McDonough, joined always by my co-host, Brennan LaFaro. Say hi, Brennan.
Hello, everybody.
And we have returning co-host, Erica Robbins. Say hi, Erica.
Hey, guys.
And the lovely author of many, many books, Tim Lebbon. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Daylight savings. It's a bitch. We were saying before recording, fucking Benjamin Franklin. He screwed us from the grave.
It's worked out fine today. Don't worry. I've got my coffee. I'm ready. I'm good to go.
You know what, though? I've learned something. It's a learning experience, because I did not realize. I thought countries either did it or didn't. I didn't realize that there were staggers throughout the world where, we, in the United States, we've done it today, March 14th, and you don't do it in Wales until March 28th. Is that right?
Yeah, 2 weeks' time. I had to check that, actually, when we were talking about it on Twitter, Messenger. But yeah, ours is 2 weeks' time, which makes no sense whatsoever.
No, it makes less sense than a system that already made no sense.
Yeah. I mean, there was talk last year of just having summertime all year round because of lockdown,
Mm-hmm.
But that was probably even too complex for our government to sort out.
Yeah, and I think whenever somebody tries to explain the meaning behind daylight savings, and this time the staggered rollout, the answer just is it's crops. That's why you guys do it the 28th, because of crops.
Yeah, apparently so. Apparently, I think ours is a hangover from the war. I think when World War II, when it was done so that farmers could get their crops in later in the evenings. I don't know if that's apocryphal, but it's quite a cool story, really. We could make up better ones, I'm sure.
And then you got
there's an anthology.
Yeah.
That's actually that'd be pretty neat. Then you got New Year's celebrations, which it's different in China. I don't know of any other year, so it's all weird. And if you think about it, it's kind of strange that we all celebrate. I mean, not celebrate. Use the same calendar, the Gregorian calendar, because we're talking about major changes in the year, and the calendar is one thing that we share. So that's at least we got that going on.
Oh, it would be fun to mix that up as well, though, wouldn't it?
just like currency. Like when I'm trying to buy a book directly from an author in different countries, I'm like, well, thank God there's a conversion rate converter built into the app. Otherwise, I'd probably pay way too much. They wouldn't say anything. Tim, what got you into horror?
Oh, blimey. I can answer this. Actually, it's The Rats by James Herbert. So when I was a kid, single-digit kid, I'd read a lot of books. And my favorite was a series of books by Willard Price, kids writer. They were adventure novels. And they probably not very PC now. It was about two brothers, Hal and I can't remember the other guy. And they travel around the world collecting animals for their father's zoo. So it was cannibal adventure, volcano adventure, lion adventure. And I loved those books. And when I was maybe 10 or 11, my mother gave me The Rats to read by James Herbert. She was a very liberal-minded mum, bless her. She got me into reading, and then with The Rats, she got me into horror and never really looked back. So I read The Rats, and probably after that carried on reading a bit of kids fiction, Willard Price. But James Herbert led to Stephen King, led to Clive Barker. And for a couple of years, it was like, oh, there can't be any people as good as these. So I just read Stephen King and Herbert again and again and again. And then a year or two later, maybe when I was, in my teens, I started reading loads of other stuff, and the whole wonderful world of horror opened up then. So I blame The Rats for getting me into horror, and I'd like to thank them very much.
Brennan or Erica, I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
No, I mean, that's it. That journey rings true. Discovering certain authors, whether for you it's James Herbert and Stephen King. For me, I would call it R.L. Stine and Stephen King, and just thinking that's all there is until the world just blooms, and you're like, oh, that's not even close. And I don't care how long I live, I'll never catch up. I'll never read all the Tim Lebbon books there are. But no, that's. I love that idea that there's always more out there, that, and depressing as it is, that no matter how long you live, you'll never get to read all the quality stuff that's being put out by different authors now, even within one genre.
Totally. It can be depressing, especially when you're at advanced years like me, because see the books behind me, I've read 50% of them. My buying habit is worse than my reading habit. It's I buy far more books than I read, and I just love owning them. And I know I won't read them all, which is a bit grim, really. Unless I'm 50.
I hope so. My wife and I enjoyed going to estate sales and yard sales, in the before times. And I remember we were checking out this old house, and two things I look for three. I look for books, CDs, and vinyl records. And there was this one room. It had to be an elderly group, like couple or whatever. They had lots of books. And I was just going through them, and I'm like, this is probably going to be me one day. Just some dead guy and a shitload of books that the kid doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, it's crossed my mind, I mean, I'm the biggest reader in my family. And, if anything happened to me, it would be like, they'd come in this room and just say, let's just get somebody in. Because what's worth something and what isn't,
I was, I really like history books. So I found this one thick one from the 70s, I think. And it's Hitler's Spies. And I'm like a lot of people, I'm drawn to that war and that guy in particular because he documented everything. So it's just it's crazy still, like that, everything involved in that, and you got so many books on it, and I still think there's probably so much more material you could do with it. This is a weird jump, but did you happen to see Jojo Rabbit?
No, I haven't seen that. I mean, people recommend that to me a lot, and it's on my list, but no, I haven't seen it yet.
Have you guys seen it, Eric or Brian? So basically, it's this little German kid. He's very much so into Hitler, and his best friend is imaginary Hitler. And he's always telling him to do all these crazy things. And long story short, there's this Jewish girl being stowed away in his house, and his mother is keeping it quiet, and when he finds out, he wants to rat them out to make his invisible friend happy, because he wants to be Hitler's best friend. And it sounds fucked up, and it is, but that's the whole point. And eventually starts changing his mind, and I think he ends up kind of like in a kid way falling in love with the girl. And then Hitler starts getting all mad, and then he acts like a little kid because he's not getting his way. It's the content, the idea sounds crazy, but it's really good. It gets touching. It's a new light in that kind of topic, that era. So I'm curious. And again, this is another weird jump, but you've played in a lot of other people's playgrounds. Yeah. Have you found it more intimidating or more enthralling and intriguing that you can do something new with something that's been done quite a few times, such as Star Wars, Hellboy, or any of the other novelization adaptations that you've done?
Yeah, well, I always try and do something. I think that the aim is always to try and do something new. If it's an original novel in another playground, sometimes I've done novelizations of movies, for which I'm sent a screenplay and told to turn it into a novel. So I do scene by scene then, but I still add new stuff in to try and make it more exciting for me and more interesting for me to do. Sometimes more interesting for the reader. There's stuff like when I did 30 Days of Night, which was a weird one because it's a novel of a screenplay of a comic. So that's a whole weird thing. I wrote the novel of the screenplay, which I enjoyed doing, but I thought they missed the trick. Like, why don't the vampires stalk a polar bear? The polar bear is like the most vicious land predator we've got on the planet. And there should have been one wandering into Barrow, and the vampires stalk it and toy with it and play with it like a cat with a mouse. So I wrote that whole extra scene in the book for a bit of fun. But if it's an original novel like my Star Wars novel and the Hellboy stuff, obviously you just want to try and make it a bit different and try and make it unintentionally. It comes out as a Tim Lebbon novel in the Star Wars universe, and my Star Wars novel was fairly grim. Had some cuss words in, which I was really torn a new one for by some fans. There's no swearing in the Star Wars universe. But yeah, and for me to make it fun, I try and make stuff a bit different. But sometimes you can't make it too different because you get reined back in then. My Hellboy had a prehensile tail, and I was told he didn't, so I had to cut that bit.
I didn't even thought of this. Star Wars doesn't have swearing in the entire universe. Come on, you got people enslaving other races. Like, at the very least, say they can go fuck themselves.
I didn't even go that far, to be honest. I think so. My main character in my Star Wars novel was a woman called Lenore Brock. Lenore is an anagram of Eleanor, my daughter's name.
Oh.
Brock, second name of a good mate, used to live in my village. So that's where I tend to come up with names from. So she was a real sort of tough. So the Star Wars thing I wrote was 25,000 years before New Hope. It was the first novel in the timeline. It was Dawn of the Jedi. So she was like a Jedi in training, sort of. But she was hard as well, and she called people bastards, and one alien called her a bitch, so she decapitated him, that sort of shit. And I was really my editor, even my editor at the time, was don't know about this, but it's in character, so we left it in. And some fans read it and didn't really like the idea that Star Wars characters would swear. I mean, Han Solo would swear, holy shit, all the time. And who knows what Chewie's.
Yeah. Hey, that's true. What if he was British? I'm not going to say the word that we're all thinking, because I'd probably get, shit for it, but you can, Tim. And then I'll say it to repeat you.
You know what, though? That sounds, very PG-13. I think you could get away with that, especially where everything has to be, at least movie and TV adaptations are always kind of going for that dark and gritty nowadays. I wonder with, I forget what year Deadpool came out, the first one, but everybody else kind of saw that as, oh, maybe we can make something with well-known, intellectual property, rated R, and it'll still do well. Obviously Disney kind of picking up Star Wars is gonna quell that, but I wonder if we eventually would have gotten some sort of like R-rated Star Wars adaptation otherwise.
Be interesting to see. Mandalorian had potential there, really, didn't it? To go that way. It was a spaghetti western in space, really, a lot of it.
Yeah. And you know what? It does a lot of that. I don't know if I'd even call it hard PG-13, but even remembering to one of the first episodes where this guy gets just cut in half by a door or something like that. I don't necessarily believe you need to go R in order to make something that's a little bit more adult friendly. But it's certainly interesting to see how you can tiptoe on that boundary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of Star Wars, is that Yoda? For audio listeners, I believe he has a Yoda with a hat on.
I do, yeah.
Holy shit, that's a big stuffy.
He's a plush Yoda. There he is.
What was the first novelization adaptation that you've written? Novel adaptation. I said that weird.
Novelization. The first one I did was blimey. I should know this. It was either the first original Hellboy novel I did, Unnatural Selection, or it was Cabin in the Woods. I think it was Unnatural Selection. The first sort of tie-in property I did, but the first novelization of a script was Cabin in the Woods, which didn't come out for like 2 years after I'd written it.
Oh, you know what? Actually, I know you did Cabin in the Woods. I really liked that movie. That was a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a Marmite movie. That's what we call it over here. People love it or hate it, and I loved it. I thought it was great fun.
It fucked around with all the tropes and horror, and it just was a bloodbath. And you can realistically have like 20 of those movies, and it's gonna be different every. Well, I mean, if it didn't end the way it ended in the first in the movie.
Yeah, that's it.
And we can still get spinoffs though, for sure. Like with all the other groups or parties, like I would be into that. That's my favorite horror movie. So
Erica, jump in.
Yeah.
They could certainly do a series, and each episode's based in a different country with a different the different gods they're trying to appease. That would be fun.
I really like the one in, I forget what country, but the Asian one where the little girls are dancing around.
Oh yeah, that was terrifying.
Asian horror for me is the creepiest horror. They just nail it.
Yeah.
Ring, based off of Ring U, for those who haven't seen it. That the first Ring was that still creeps me out to this day. The second one, me and my friends were laughing at it. We saw it in theaters because it was a bit silly.
Ring was the one where the sort of demon comes out of the TV, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The original was terrifying because it was actually an actress coming out of a TV screen and doing all the twitching and stuff. But the American remake, which I seem to remember being pretty good, I think they sort of CGI'd that bit, and it wasn't quite as scary.
You know that it's definitely dated though, because if a kid, like, I don't know what age, but if a teen, I guess, sees a VHS now, they'll more than likely be like, "It's this shit."
Yeah.
How do you play it?
Yeah, you're not gonna have any way to play that.
And my little guy's one right now, so by the time he's a teenager, he's probably gonna be. I'm not even speaking in hyperbole. I've got over 800 CDs. Can't imagine what he's gonna be like. He's like, I'm gonna go on YouTube.
But by the time he's grown up, CDs will be back in. So I stream my music now, but I've got hundreds and hundreds of CDs in a box in the attic because I refuse to get rid of them. Yeah. So I've just got my old. Unfortunately, I sold some vinyl, but I've just got a load of my old vinyl out and bought a record player because I just love playing records.
What do you mainly collect, or is it just a whole? Is it a whole bunch of everything?
Music-wise?
Yeah, music-wise.
Oh, I'm rock through and through, but as I get older, I listen to all sorts of other stuff. I mean, My favorite at the moment is Frank Turner and the Sleeping Souls. Frank's amazing. Christ, I've seen Metallica and Anthrax, and my first gig in 1984 was Saxon, British metal band. Motorhead, who are a big favorite, AC/DC. I've just bought tickets to see Skunk Anansie in the UK in April 2022. So that's like looking ahead. Music with balls. I like rock music, or I'll listen to Mumford and Sons and stuff like that, but I prefer the sort of faster stuff.
Okay. I got a CD yesterday, actually, from a band from North Yorkshire. I don't know if I said that right, in England. Asking Alexandria.
Right.
They are pretty. I don't know, if you like rock and metal, that's a band to go to.
Yeah.
Guys, why don't you? I'm kind of babbling on. Why don't you guys take me away?
Actually, I want to bring us back to novelizations real quick, specifically ones that are, tie-ins to a movie.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, when you write that, what's your target audience? Is it people who've seen the movie and want to relive it through the book? People who want to read that first and then go to the movie? What are you kind of, I guess, told to write for?
I'm told different things for different properties. But usually it's quite a wide remit. And I've never done a tie-in thing for a project I'm not interested in. So I've never done like Hannah Montana novel or anything like that. But I've done, the Hellboy stuff and Alien and Predator. My dream job was writing an Alien novel. Most people would think it's writing a Star Wars novel. And that was a good job because the money was great. And I'm a Star Wars fan. But for me, it was always going to be, if I could write a novel set in somebody else's universe, it would be an Alien novel. So I got the opportunity to write an Alien novel with Ripley in it, with a slight problem because Fox wanted it set between Alien and Aliens. Obviously, in Aliens, Ripley doesn't remember having another alien adventure, so I had a slight wrinkle to get around there. But for me, that was I just wanted it to feel like an Alien novel, but also feel like my own sort of stamp on the universe. So I don't really. I guess I don't really sit and think about who I'm writing this for. I think, I'm writing an Alien novel. I'm just going to write the story I'd really love to see on the screen, for instance, that sort of thing. I don't really think about the audience unless publisher or property owners sort of say stuff to me. But they're rarely specific with it. Then they're like back to the Star Wars thing. They didn't say, right, you're writing a Star Wars novel. It's got to be for a young age group. They just said, write me a Star Wars novel, and I did, and it was possibly a little more gritty than they were expecting, but they loved it, and it was well received. There were not many people that didn't like the fact that it was darker and grittier. There was lots of decapitations. It was a pretty violent book. And strangely enough, I hadn't read any of the other Star Wars novels at the time, which my editor probably would not want me to say, but it was years ago. So the people doing the audio book of the Star Wars novel got in touch with me and said, we're so pleased to be doing this because it's a really strong female lead. And I was like, well, there must be other, Leia, and there's other strong female characters. But they said, no, the novels, it's like your main character is a strong female lead, and it's been an absolute pleasure to record it. So I guess that's a bit of a, if I had known all the other books, maybe that wouldn't have happened. I don't know, really. I just wanted to make it my own sort of dark fantasy novel set in the Star Wars universe, really.
Plus your daughter's ebbed into she's just a part of it now. Your daughter is a part of the Star Wars canon because of you.
She is. Yeah, she's canon. Yeah.
How cool is that, man? And I imagine that you were into the original trilogy when it came out.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I've watched all the movies, and there's a law of diminishing returns for me, but the first three are still classics. When I say the first three, I mean episode 4, 5, and 6.
Brendan, I cut you off, but I want to return to the original trilogy if you guys don't mind after.
No, I was just going to point out for audio listeners, because we were just talking about writing novelizations and tie-ins to Alien, that Tim has a face hugger sneaking up behind him. But, so my original question was, what's your target audience? And what I was kind of wondering is, you mentioned earlier when you were writing the novelization for 30 Days of Night that you saw an opportunity and put a scene in there. And I was wondering, do you ever get any, like negative feedback and flack for doing stuff like that? Because, like, personally, when I don't often read novelizations, but when I do, and it's just, scene by scene of the movie, like, I kind of almost like it when there's deleted scenes or there's, very slightly different interpretations, just something to switch up that experience from watching it on screen.
Yeah, well, that makes it more interesting for me to write, to be honest, and more fun. And also, I sort of hope that will make it more interesting for the reader. Because if a reader's going to a novelization of a movie expecting just to read scene by scene of the movie, what's the point? It's like the Psycho remake. What's the point? It's scene by scene, apart from a wanking scene in the shower.
Vince Vaughn. That's why.
Yeah. So the example you gave, the 30 Days of Night, like I said before, I just thought that was a trick they missed. Interestingly, me putting that scene in led in a very roundabout way to me and Chris Golden writing a trilogy of Jack London novels for HarperCollins and getting a movie deal with Fox. Because over a meal one day, I was talking about the 30 Days of Night thing, and I mentioned the polar bear thing, and somebody said, I said, yeah, vampire polar bears. And Chris said, we can totally do that. And I said, yeah, we'll call it White Fangs. And that went from that little throwaway line to us writing a trilogy. So as well as making it more interesting for the reader and writer, it can also lead to new book deals.
That's part of the Blood of the Four?
No, that was The Secret Journeys of Jack London.
Oh, okay, my apologies.
Which we wrote for HarperCollins. Actually, they only published the first two, but we had to write the third book because we'd sold it in a couple of other countries, and we made it available on Kindle. Vagaries of the publishing business, yeah. But also other times, like when I wrote the novelization of Kong Skull Island, I finished the novelization and realized it's a bit short, so I added another monster attack in there, just to sort of make it more novel length. But who doesn't want another monster attack in their Kong book?
All of them, right? I'll just have them all.
Absolutely.
You guys have anything else on Brennan or Erica on this subject before we jump back to the original Star Wars?
No, if you want to steer us, take the wheel, Captain.
Yeah, because who doesn't love it? My dad used to bring me to the movies as a kid all the time. The next town over, there's a little six screen cinema, and 96 or 97, I'm pretty sure one of those dates, they were reissuing the original trilogy, and the first one that was near me was The Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
And I saw that and I was like, it's like some dynamite went off in my head. Like, what is this? And I remember I was in the second grade, and I talked about it whenever the next day of class was, and it may have ruined that Luke is the brother of Leia and the son of Darth Vader for at least one girl who
that's great.
Seemed to not like me from that point on throughout high school.
That's a bad spoiler, though. That's a bad spoiler. Yeah. I'm showing my age now because I saw them originally I saw Star Wars in 78. It was actually in the pictures in the cinema here. I saw the original, and going back to see the re-released version in the cinema was just still that opening scene where the destroyer comes across and keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps coming. I remember watching it with a massive shiver down my spine and a big smile on my face. It was epic seeing that in the cinema again.
It's just so cool. He did something. He's like, this is why sci-fi is cool. This is how it can be awesome. And going back to Han Solo, like a guy like him would totally swear and do a lot of crazy shit that wouldn't be PG-13.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Brent.
Sorry, I was just going to say there's got to be a market for adult Star Wars novels like Han Solo. Yeah, he shot first as well. We all know that, and
Oh my God! Oh, just thinking about that.
I'm going to email my Star Wars editor now. Yeah, just call it First, and it's about Han having his gnarly adventures.
And you could write the sequel, Han, or however you want to pronounce it, Han in his hand, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Subtitle, Winky Face. So let's go to the silence, because that was the first introduction for me to anything related to your work, and I love that movie so much, man. It was really neat, and I did see that there was talks of people reaching out to you being like, "Have you seen A Quiet Place?" And you're like, "Yeah." You see,
fucking hell, yeah.
Yeah, even through the text, you could be like, "This guy." Maybe I'm a pain in the ass for bringing it up, but even through the text, thinking as a writer, I'd be like, "Yeah, I've fucking seen it. Don't talk to me about it."
That was a weird thing, So I was actually on set in a little town north of Toronto when with Robert Colzer from Constantine and the producers and the director, and we just standing around having a coffee and a chat, and one of them said, "Have you seen this this new movie that's out soon called Quiet Place?" It's like, no. And that's when we sort of heard about this thing rearing its head and what was happening. And the truth is, there was a lot of comparison at the time, and that didn't do me any harm at all. It didn't do my novel or the film of The Silence any harm, because so many, there was a lot of stuff online when sort of pre-publicity about The Silence, when people said, "Oh, it's just a Quiet Place ripoff." Every time that happened, somebody jump on. Not me, because I had to stay away from this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Legally, but people would jump on and say, "No, Tim's novel was written 2 years, 4 years ago, and the films were genuinely in production at the same time." It's just, it happens, an idea in the zeitgeist. And it's quite a high concept idea, creatures that hunt by sound. But once you think that idea, you can go, and it only takes two people to think that idea, which did happen. And then 2 movies came up from it. So it's a bit frustrating, not even frustrating. It's a bit, I suppose, annoying more than anything that another movie came out with the same idea. But it was just a coincidence. And it happens all the time. You see movies. There were 2 volcano movies out one year, and there were 2 movies out one year. There were 2 Winston Churchill movies out a couple of years ago, and it just happened.
2 Steve Jobs movies that came out within a few years.
And unfortunately, it's like no matter how hard you beat your head against the wall, or how hard your fans beat their heads against the wall in your defense, the general public, society, just kind of looks at it and says, whichever one came first, or whichever one hit harder. I always think of when that John Carter movie came out like 10 years ago and bombed. So many people are like, "Oh, it just looks like a ripoff of Star Wars." It's like, okay, except it's based on novels that were written 60 years before Star Wars that Star Wars ripped off. It's just kind of the matter of which one hits first, and then people get that idea stuck in their head.
That's what happened. There was lots of oh my God, Netflix is just jumping on the Quiet Place band. Made, The Silence was wrapped at the same time, or roughly the same time, as A Quiet Place, and it's just exactly what you said, Brennan. I think Quiet Place hit much harder. It's the better known film, and that's why The Silence is seen as a poor knockoff. But it isn't. The Silence, if A Quiet Place hadn't happened, I think The Silence would have taken off a lot more than it did, to be honest, unfortunately. But I'm proud of the film. I think it's a great movie. I'm a dead corpse in the film. So what could be cooler, eh? You've got to really hit the pause button really quickly to see my bloody corpse on the floor, but I'm there.
Yeah, he steps right over you, right? The main.
That's it. Stanley Tucci stepped over me, yeah.
That
was fun.
So it reminds me of when I hear people say the cover by 9 Inch Nails, the Johnny Cash cover, and I'm like, that's Hurt's not a Johnny Cash song.
No.
He did a cover like 12 years later, or something like that, like 10, 12 years later after 9 Inch Nails. So basically, you're Trent Reznor, my friend.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's a nice save.
Yeah.
So what was the experience like working on The Silence? Because it's really cool. Like as a guy before seeing or being introduced to the independent scene, and I don't really know what to call you. You're like a hybrid because you self-publish, you've worked with traditional publishers, you're worked with indies, and I'm just, for the sake of this specific point, I'm just going to call you an indie author. I know that's not true, but I don't know what else to say. Hybrid Tim, maybe. But
I just call myself a working writer. You know, I started.
There we go.
I started in the indie press. I started in the small press over here, which was little magazines hand printed in people's houses and then folded and stapled and posted to your door with a £5 check if you were lucky for your story. You know, I started with that sort of stuff and then discovered the indie press in the States like 18, 20 years ago with Nightshade and Cemetery Dance and Subterranean, and worked with all them. And I still work with the indie press occasionally now. And as you say, I've self-published a bit. But yeah, I call myself a working writer. I write for a living, so I do stuff that I love doing and earns money. That's the balance you got to take, you know.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Let's go back to that in a minute. But as far as the working writer stuff goes, you, Adam Neville, and Josh Mallerman, you guys all hit it big with. I say big. I know that's different for different people, but you guys all had all three movies were successful. They were on Netflix, and they give writers like me, currently not really well known, to really anyone, and I'm like, that could be me or one of my friends one day, and it gives us, us hope. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, before The Silence happened, I had another movie before The Silence, Pay the Ghost with Nicolas Cage, but that wasn't, that still rears its head every Halloween. It's a good, fun Halloween film. I had nothing to do. You asked me the experience about The Silence.
Yeah.
That's it. I was told I had a dream experience with The Silence, a dream Hollywood experience. The movie was made 4 years after the book was out, and that's unheard of. You know, most movies are in gestation for 10 years. Everyone I met, I was involved in the screenplay, not officially, but I chat to the director all the time and the writers. They flew me out to set, killed me on set. Actually, I was killed previous, but I was dead on set.
You look great for a corpse.
Yeah. I wasn't credited either. I was really pissed off. I wasn't in the credits.
That's weird.
And they didn't pay me, but for being a corpse. But I'm still friends with the director, Leonetti. I'm still friends with Robert Colzer, the guy at Constantine, great guy, and Alexandra, the producer. And it was just a wonderful experience, beginning to end. But what I was going to say is, before that happened, I was somebody I was someone like a lot of writers, just, oh God, I hope it would be lovely if that happened one day. And then just suddenly it did. And it's absolutely incredible experience. Happened to anyone,
That's great, man. Now, I'm going to show my ignorance here, but you said Constantine. Were you talking about the show or the movie with Keanu Reeves?
No, I'm on about the film company, German film company, Constantine. They're the film company behind Silence. So these guys
Never mind.
That's all right. They made all the Resident Evil films, and they got loads of they're great production, great film company.
That was an interesting series to watch unfold, because the first Resident Evil, that was just creepy. It's really good. The second one started to get silly, and Mike Epps just adds this comedic flavor to it that not a lot of comedians can. And then it just turned into like, all right, let's just get popcorn because it's gonna get silly, fun, and very gory.
That's it. And I think they're relaunching it. I'm pretty sure Constantine are doing a launch in Resident Evil.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh,
and why?
Brennan,
there's money to be made, man.
Take the lead.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. No? Okay, I'll take it.
I was gonna say let's run, walk, or crawl to run, walk, crawl. You like that segue?
That's a good one. Yeah.
It might be the worst one actually. But let's go anyway. So let's kind of start out with, you had this journey to get fit in your 40s. And the big thing that stuck out to me, and you mention it throughout the book, is finding something that you love that that coincides with a way to stay healthy.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you could kind of talk to that a little bit, and also how that ties into you wanting to write this book and share it with the world.
Yeah, sure. So I, through my 20s and 30s, I was never super unfit or never largely overweight, but I was quite unfit and a little bit overweight. And I'd always try and address that by joining a gym or starting running or going out on a bike ride. But I was always doing those things with the intention of getting fit and losing weight. And that's why I'm sure that's why it never worked. And I always said to an old friend of mine, a guy who used to be my boss when I worked for a living, that I always thought I'd have to the only way I'd really get fit is to find something I loved doing or something that was way beyond my capabilities. So the first sort of big thing I did was the National Three Peaks Challenge in the UK, which is climbing the biggest mountain in England, Scotland, and Wales, all within 24 hours, including driving time between them. So I committed to doing that, and with a bunch of friends, and did it, trained for it, and did it. And then soon after, discovered triathlon, which I still adore now, and I still train for it, and I still race now. When the world's not dead, there was no races last year, but this year's races mostly are on. And like you say, I found a focus there. I found triathlon, which is something I love doing, and a byproduct of that is getting fitter. So it's almost like for me, and it's probably not the same with everyone. I have got friends who run 2 or 3 times a week and hate it, but they do it to be fit. But I run and bike and swim because I love triathlon and I love training for it and I love taking part. So, and I mentioned that in the book, that fitness is a byproduct of something you love doing. Not everyone can zero in on something they love, but most people do. I mean, I've got friends who play football or play squash, or my sister-in-law pole dances for fitness and teaches pole dancing. And the byproduct of doing all these things they love doing is keeping fit. Whatever level of fitness that means. And I talk about that in the book as well. I almost feel that, saying I got fit in my 40s almost feels, what I should really say is, I got a bit fitter than I was in my 30s, because I know so many people who are far fitter than me, But it's finding something you love, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned that in the book where it doesn't have a ring to it, like run, walking.
Yeah, getting a bit fitter in my 40s than I was in my 30s. Yeah, the cover's not big enough for that sort of subtitle. But, yeah.
I tried running so many times in my life, but I don't know. Maybe I'm not doing it the right way. I remember when I was in my teens and I had my first breakup with my first girlfriend. One of my friends, he ran all the time. His whole family ran. And he said, just run it out, run out the emotions. And I'm like, dude, this sucks. It hurts everywhere. Emotionally and physically now.
Yeah, there is that.
I think that's important, though. That's a huge statement, is not making fitness the goal, but making it a byproduct of something you love, because it is so hard to, make I want to be in shape the goal, because, it can, when you just start out running, it can be miserable. When you start out, doing other exercises, it is miserable.
Yeah.
And yeah, you mentioned the, both the physical and mental benefits of it. And it's easy to know those, to be like, yes, I understand conceptually that I will feel better, if I, take care of myself better. But that, getting over that bridge is huge. And to hear how you just kind of fell in love with how, the 3-part nature of this, the swimming, the biking, and I did love, I used to bike a bit back in the day, and I've fallen out of it, but I did love kind of that idea of the right amount of bikes to have is however many you have plus one.
That's it.
so you're never going to get there.
The very famous equation, n plus 1, where n is the actual number of bikes you have.
Oh, can we talk about that? Focus in on the silence and how the success or the money with that got you a nice bike. I know it's in the book, but maybe a little fun little preview for those that have potential readers, if you will.
Well, with any film stuff, there's always, it's going to happen or it isn't. So there's always the pressure of that, and film money can be pretty reasonable. So there's like saying to my wife, if the silence happens, I'm buying myself a TT bike, a triathlon bike. If it doesn't happen, I'm not having a bike. So that it was my treat when the deal finally closed, when they started shooting. So film money generally comes in on first day of principal photography. So when they've set up on site in Toronto, my agent gets the nod that they've started shooting the first scenes. That's when we get paid. So that's the day I ordered my bike. Yeah, it's far too good for me. It's a thing of beauty. I could put it on the wall and stare at it. My wife wouldn't be very happy. I'm a very middle of the road, middle of the pack triathlete. I'm never going to win a race or anything. So to be honest, it's probably a bit too good for me, but it was a treat. It was my.
Yeah, when I read that part where you said that you'd frame it basically if you weren't riding it.
Yeah, it is a gorgeous thing. I'll send you guys a picture afterwards.
Sure.
It looks like it belongs in Knight Rider, and I do love it. It's tough to ride. It's not, especially if the roads around here at the moment are in a bit of a state after winter. There's potholes and things, and I have fallen off it once and broke a rib. So it does. You got to be careful. Got to get used to it.
Erica, why don't you jump in?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to multitask there. I really like your comment about being like a middle of the pack kind of participant, because I feel like books like this, they can hit a little bit hard if it's somebody that's like, always coming in first and like they're always best at everything. So when I'm only in early part 2, so I've got some reading to do, but I really liked part 1 and how you talked about just starting to get fit and not focusing on losing weight exactly. Because I think a lot of people get really caught up in the numbers game of it. And I see friends struggling with that. And I'm just like, oh, you can give them all the advice you want. But I loved your line about just eat healthier and find something you love to make you move more. That's key. That's awesome.
Yeah, that the $1 billion weight loss industry can be summed up in that, really. Yeah. Eat better, eat less, move more. And that also goes back to what Brennan was saying about when we were talking about finding something that you love to do. I think that there's a $1 billion gym industry as well that makes 50% of their money luring people in, saying, come to our gym, you'll get fit. Oh yeah, and so we'll join up for a year and we go 3 times and get bored with it because all we're doing is going there and doing this to get fit. And then they leave but still pay their year's membership. A lot of these gyms that must earn, it's like airlines overbooking flights because they know not everyone will turn up to fly. These gyms, if all their members turned up in one day, there wouldn't be room. So they pretty much, their business model is knowing they're going to sign up plenty of people who will never use the facilities. Don't know how I got around there, but yeah, the like you said, Erica, the weight loss thing, I wasn't really exercising to lose weight. I don't think it just happened as another byproduct of finding something I enjoyed doing, really. Lockdown hasn't been kind to me. I'm the same weight now as I was at the beginning of COVID, but it's redistributed quite a bit. So yeah.
Well, and to Erica's comment about how it can be tough to read a book like this with somebody who has turned themselves into a perfect physical specimen who finishes every race first and leaves the middle of the road people in their dust. I would be very curious to find out how many times you used the word cake in this book.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, all that to say,
Yeah.
you don't come in with these unrealistic expectations like, yes, you must, you have to have grilled asparagus for dinner every night.
Yeah.
And you may eat one piece of corn for breakfast. That's it. You're like, look, I'm unapologetic and I freaking love cake. So I'm going to get back to it.
So much so that I dedicate a whole chapter to it for a bit of a laugh. Yeah. Yeah. And also, I'm in a triathlon club, and the bulk of my friends in the club are a bit like me. We love doing what we do, but we also love going out on a bike ride and stopping for coffee and cake. There are some real athletes in the club who are almost pro-level triathletes. They've qualified for Kona, the Ironman World Champions. There's at least one sub 9-hour Ironman in the club, and that is just mind-boggling. I mean, my fastest Ironman is just under 12.5 hours. And this guy can finish one in 9. It's amazing. But most people I know who do stuff like this do it so that you can eat cake. It's refueling. Yeah, and the books like this and shows or whatever with people who are prime physical specimens who always win their races, guaranteed they always start the book saying, I'm not a really good athlete, but they are really, and a lot of these guys come from elite running backgrounds or elite cycling backgrounds. I come from nothing and no particular background, and do it because like I said, because I love it, but also my diet's not great, but it's not terrible. What I say about my diet is I eat all the right stuff, but I also eat a lot of the wrong stuff too. So, I did go veggie 18 months ago, and I eat lots of food that's really good for me, but I also still eat lots of food that's really bad for me, and I love a beer. That's why I do it.
Fellow pescatarian, I meant to bring that up.
Yeah, I'm pesky. Yeah. I say veggie and pescatarian. Yeah.
Me too, man. What did it for me was my pig. I got that pig 3.5, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And after about 6 months, I was like, I can't do it. She's so fucking smart. It's like eating a human.
Yeah. Pigs are really yeah.
Annoyingly so, where they're like, I think the equivalency is a 5-year-old child. Okay. She'll remember things like for example, there was something we left on a dining room table, and she pulled down the little thing that drapes on the edges. And for the next few weeks, she just kept doing that because she thought there was food. we picked up on it eventually because we're slower than her. But here's the thing: if you're gonna try to stay away from, I call it land meat because I eat seafood. I love seafood.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. There's so many choices now, but there's a lot of wrong choices. One of my, I think it was, I might be throwing my brother under the bus, but it might have been him, where basically someone didn't say you're still fat, but you're chubby. Because pasta, cake.
Yeah, right.
There's so many things you could eat wrong.
Yeah, and I do, but I eat the right things too. So I went veggie as a bit of an experiment when my daughter 18 months ago, she's 22 now, she said, I'm going to try going vegetarian. I said, I'll do it with you. So Ellie lasted, she's got a really good diet, but she veggie wise, she lasted a few weeks. I just carried on because I, like you said, I didn't miss the meat, and I know, and I sort of, sorry, Mike. Oh, I just had a notification come up to say, don't forget, podcast in 15 minutes.
For those listening, me and Brennan fucked up on the time. Daylight savings is a bitch.
That's okay. It's worked out great. Yeah, I think for me the veggie thing's partly the health thing, partly liking animals, and partly the environmental impact of it. But I always say to everyone, if I really miss meat, I'm going to start eating it again. But so far, I haven't really. So
the worst thing you can do, in my opinion, is start talking about how people that eat meat are doing it wrong and stuff. It's just like, shut the fuck up. If you got something that works for you, tell people, which is what you did. But you're not like making people feel bad. all three of us, we're not like all four of us actually. None of us are like this top fit athlete or whatever, like Erica and Brennan said, and I think that's going to relate to a lot more people than say you try to go on the Tom Brady diet, which is what, avocado ice cream and have a piece of pizza every 3 years. Somehow still playing the NFL 21 years later.
Yeah.
As if you're in your 20s. Like it's not relatable. But which, by the way, I tried looking at his meals for the average human, and they're very much so out of my price range. I'm a working class American that can't afford a $70-$90 meal.
Yeah. There's that. Oh yeah.
Erica, me and Brennan are talking a whole lot. Why don't you jump back in?
Yeah, so kind of also related to fitness in a roundabout way, but I wanted to start off by just talking about your book, Eden. Before I dive in with my questions, is that something that you would feel comfortable giving just like an elevator pitch about?
Yeah, sure. So Eden's set in the near future where the climate crisis has reached tipping point and the world's going downhill really quickly. But humanity rises to the occasion and creates, I think there's a dozen areas that they call virgin zones, which are areas of the planet that we give back to nature. They're not national parks, they're not experiments, they're purely large areas of the planet that we say to nature, this is yours, we're going to withdraw. And with the intention of these places becoming the lungs of the planet, I guess, and trying to save not only flora and fauna, but also to save the planet itself. But these areas, even though no humans are allowed inside, not even scientists, they become attractive to certain groups of people, like adventure racers who decide that the first adventure racing team to cross Eden, which is the biggest and the oldest of these areas, will gain a certain kudos. So it's about an adventure racing team going into Eden and trying to cross the area, and Eden's not welcoming of humanity anymore, and stuff happens.
Are you a fan of Algernon and Blackwood?
Oh God, yeah, the Willows, and yeah, fantastic stuff. Yeah.
For those that haven't read him yet, he's heavy with nature, pretty much. What would you call it? Like nature horror, environmental horror?
I guess. Yeah, environmental horror implies that it's about change, environmental change, but it's more about our relationship with nature, isn't it? His sort of stuff. Machen as well, to an extent. Arthur Machen, I'm a big fan of. But yeah, Blackwood stuff's superb.
Yeah, because Blackwood. I don't know about the other author you just mentioned. I haven't heard of him before, I'll admit. But Blackwood was before Lovecraft too, which is we use Lovecraft as a reference point for the weird of pretty much all kinds of horror that isn't supernatural monsters or gothic horror. But there's there's quite a few before him that I don't hear too often, and Blackwood is of the few that aren't mentioned as much. Of course, you got Poe, but I don't hear too much about Blackwood being discussed, and I love the environmental horror because I mean, especially now. I mean, where haven't we invaded?
Yeah, right. I mean, that's why I thought Eden was pretty sort of its time. Yeah, it was, and I'm a nature lover as well. And there's another reason I love doing what I do, sort of exercise wise. I love running in the hills and biking through. We got lovely countryside here. I went for a bike ride yesterday, and I just look around and think, holy shit, I'm so lucky to live here. And that's I also bike. You'll appreciate this. I biked past a place called Rockfield Studios, which is where some of the greatest bands in history. I believe Queen recorded Bohemian Rhapsody there, or Motorhead recorded there, and it's like a real famous recording studio here. And it's on my regular bike route. It's cool.
Yeah, I remember that in the book. And I mean, like Freddie Mercury, to me, he's like the greatest singer ever. He's not my favorite. Mine's Robert Plant. I'm a British rock guy. Like my favorite bands are from Britain. or the UK. I don't know if they're from. Whole UK thing fucks me up.
All the other just implies the same thing, really. Yeah.
Led Zeppelin, The Who, and the Beatles are my 3 favorite. Queen as well. But as far as the environmental stuff and riding bikes, you talk about it. It's pretty much like a theme with you in this one, where you prefer the trail runs as opposed to streets, pavement, asphalt, whatever.
Yeah.
I love that. I personally love hiking. My wife and I really are fond of New Hampshire. They have beautiful trails there. Is there anywhere that you particularly like going over other trails, or do you just kind of like all the areas you've been to? Is there something you pull away from each of that, or is there just like one trail that really hits home with you in your heart?
Well, again, the place I live, my local town is called Abergavenny, and there's 3 mountains that surround it. And I love exercising in those places. One is called the Blorange, which is, so whoever says nothing rhymes with orange, come to Abergavenny, because the Blorange mountain is there. But probably one of my favorite places is Snowdon in North Wales. It's the tallest mountain in Wales. I've probably been up it 6 or 7 times now, sometimes in races, sometimes just hiking it. And that's an amazing place. It's never the same twice. When you get to the top, if you're lucky, you'll see a view. If you're unlucky, you'll see this far in front of you with rain and snow and hail. It's just an incredible place. But yeah, just locally, I go in the hills locally and getting to know them quite well.
That's awesome. I pulled us way off the path. Erica asked about Eden, and I took over. I apologize for that. All you, Erica.
That's totally fine. I was going to loop it back to be like, oh, well, talking about racing again. So in Eden, the characters are trying to get across the area as quickly as possible. But they've also got an underlying mission, but I'm not going to talk about that because that could be a spoiler. But since you are so into physical fitness and racing and things like that, I wanted to ask you if you were a character in this book, and maybe you already did. Maybe you did a character arc that was something that you would typically follow. But if you didn't do that, how do you think, if you had the option to race across Eden or not, would you do it, as the first question? And then how do you think you would handle that race?
That's an interesting one. So looking back on the book now, I think the characters that do go into race across Eden are pretty, they decide to do something that's pretty not cool, really, because Eden's been left to nature, and that's the whole reason it's there. So in a way, they're not likable characters to begin with. I sort of fell in love with all the characters in the book, and each one's got a little bit of me in them, I guess. So would I do it or not? I like to think no, but given the opportunity, probably, because it's a challenge. I like a challenge. I like something that we talked about earlier, something that maybe is a bit beyond my capabilities mentally. Like when I signed up for my first Ironman, there was no way in my head I could do it. There's no fucking way I'm ever going to be able to do this race. So signing up for something that's just beyond your capabilities pushes you, and I like that sort of challenge. So yeah, I'd run across Eden. Yeah.
Yeah, just in the first few chapters where they're actually in there and they were talking about running for hours and hours, I was like, oh man, I've done a 5K, and that's pretty much where I top out for physical fitness. Plus I have asthma, so I feel like the second I crossed in there, I'd be in big trouble.
Yeah.
But it's a crazy thought, and the characters are thrown so many speed bumps as they're going through. So I just can't imagine. Every time something happened, I was like, oh, yep, I'd be out. Oh, yeah, that too. Nope, I'm going the other way.
Yeah.
So I want to switch things up to your days with leisure. Can you tell us about that? Just any story you got, because I'm fascinated. Brian Keene was the one that, his podcast was the one that made me aware of it, because I didn't, unlike a lot of my peers, when y'all came out in the early aughts. That was my high school years, and I thought I was too dumb to read at that point because of the criteria to reading this book or that one. I didn't know that this world existed with all these amazing books of dark fiction. So I'm curious if you could tell us any story you want from that time period.
So Nature of Balance was my first novel with. So first of all, I should tell you that Keen and I have an argument about how you pronounce leisure.
Oh,
it's leisure. Over here, it's leisure. So we've decided it's leisure. Okay. We pronounce it. Okay. So I'll say leisure because you guys.
Stupid Americans.
So yeah, Nature of Balance was my first novel with them, and it was also my first mainstream publication. So before Nature of Balance, I'd had stuff in pretty much exclusively in the indie press. So that was a massive step for me having a book with a mass market publisher. I mean, they didn't pay huge, but it was still. I think that was about the time. It was a couple of years after Nature of Balance was out that I became a full-time writer. I think, not because of that deal. I'll hasten to add, because of other deals and other stuff that was happening. So at the time, I had a good experience with Leisure. I had 6 books with them. The most popular was probably Berserk, because it had a really kick-ass evil child cover. I think that was I'm looking at my book covers on the wall. That was my second to last book with Leisure, I think. The book after that was called The Everlasting. And when Don Doria at Leisure showed me the cover for that, I remember thinking, oh, it's a skull with a snake and no, it wasn't a snake, a skull on a book with a candle. And I said, Don, my cover for Berserk was amazing. The cover for this is the most cliched horror cover and he's sort of, we know what we're doing, Tim. And the book didn't sell well, which shows some people judge a book by its cover. But I had a generally okay experience with Leisure.
That's a good American accent.
Leisure, yeah. Have you asked Keen to do his British accent?
No.
Next time you speak to Keen, get him on your show, whatever, and I guarantee if you say to him, so Keen, do your Tim Lebbon accent, he'll say, hello, Mary Poppins. That's the thing, okay?
That's offensive.
Mary Poppins. Yeah, well, he is.
Yeah.
He's a good mate, Keen. I've known him from way back. Yeah. Yeah, my experience with Leisure was pretty good, because I think by the time things started going tits up with them, I'd sort of left. I'd moved on, and I was working with probably Bantam at the time, writing my dark fantasy stuff. So I wasn't so caught up in all the maelstrom of chaos that ended the publishing company. I wasn't so caught up in that, really.
Probably a good thing. I actually have on my desk, I always look when I go to thrift stores or whatever, I look for authors that I talk to now to see if I could find any. And I came across
a desk. Oh, wow.
Only one time have I come across a Tim Lebbon book, and I had to get it. Yeah, Dusk.
Cool.
Yeah, I saw that there's a sequel to it too. Don, I love how you put your foot in all different types of subgenres.
Yeah.
You're like me, man, and a lot of people. You have a lot of different interests, and I'm sure that you get bored if you just wrote in one I'll use, for lack of a better word, sandbox.
Yeah, I guess everyone's different, though. I think some writers just write horror, the similar sort of horror all the time, and it's because they get fucking good at it and they love it and it's their passion. I like I said right at the beginning, I'm a working writer, so I have to balance. I really balance art versus commerce, because writing is an art, but for me it's also a business. So I need to think about what I'm writing next, and whether it's going to get me a deal, whether it's going to help me continue earn income and keep a roof over my family's head, that sort of thing. And there's that aspect to it. There's also like you said, the boredom aspect. I I love writing. I loved writing Dusk and Dawn. I always thought if I was going to write Midnight as well, and then if they wanted a fourth one, I could write Tea Time. So I wrote Dusk and Dawn and four other fantasy novels, dark fantasy, and then what happens is you drift away from a publisher, or they don't want to publish you anymore because your numbers aren't great. So then you go to another publisher and try something different, which I've done. I've done a couple of thrillers. I wrote The Hunt and The Family Man for a publisher at HarperCollins over here. And The Hunt is actually, that's very much write what you know. That was something, that was a thriller I wrote, which I thought, hell, I'm doing all this endurance sport, I should write a novel about it. So The Hunt is me being chased around Snowdonia, being shot at, basically. It was almost so close to being a movie as well. So close. Like different sandboxes. I'm always writing different stuff. At the moment, I've got a horror novel that I'm tinkering with, trying to start a potential TV pitch that I'm hoping to be pitching quite soon. I did an online course last week. Me and a few other script writers taught a screenwriting class, and it got me wanting to write a play because there was a couple of playwrights involved. I thought, oh hell, that would be a real challenge. One scene, one 2 or 3 characters. That'd be great fun. And the challenge as well, the challenge in writing different stuff for yourself as a writer keeps it fresh. Because I sit here every day trying to write, and if it's something different and fresh, I just find it more exciting. I'm waffling an awful lot, so ask me another question.
No, I was going to say, Erica, go on. I feel like I've been doing that too. I've developed that phrase here, and it's not just Welsh from people in Scotland and England, where they say waffling, and I find myself saying that phrase from time to time. And
waffling, yeah.
I don't know if anyone here knows what the fuck I'm talking about.
It means talking bollocks. Yeah, that's phrase probably.
I know that, but like at work, if I say it, I don't. I think they're just gonna be like, "Oh, where did that come from?" Eric, all you.
Yeah, I talk in circles, so I get it. I had a couple of just kind of random questions. So you had mentioned a creepy cover that you have on your wall. And I know they change with like the different countries that books are published in. So I'm sure you have like thousands of different covers. But do you have like one specifically or a few that stand out above the rest that you're just like, wow, I love that cover?
Do you know one that I thought was really effective even before it became a movie is The Silence? Just let me see if I can find it. Hold on. Still. Oh, no, that's not it. Yeah, here it is. Keep talking. So just that is so. It's so simple.
Yep.
But really, really effective. Something Titan do is beautiful covers. So I think Eden's a cracking cover as well. I could have done without the red. It says from the best-selling author of Netflix's The Silence. I know that's a marketing thing. I'd have liked to have seen it without that.
Yeah, the marketing elements are always a bummer, and especially when there's stickers. I know that really drives everybody crazy. So I thought that was a sticker when I first saw my copy, and then I was like, no, it's actually on there.
Heard if it was a sticker because you could take it off, but it's not. It's but I totally understand why they did that. And
I made a tweet about that I got Coraline, and I tagged Neil Gaiman in it, and I said, Neil, does this warrant me to burn down this store? Just joking. I didn't think he'd reply, but he was like, no, don't do that. Really? So he's such a nice guy. I hope he doesn't think I'm some pyro lunatic. But it does deserve burning down for a sticker.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially if there's stickers that don't come off. If there's stickers that you have to get your fingernail take all the off. Oh, that's fucking terrible. Yeah.
They did it to the front, the spine, and I believe the back. So
yeah, that's unforgivable.
It's overkill. Yeah. One of my next questions. So we talked about like a few of the projects that you had worked on, and like one of them was Firefly. So when I saw that, I was just like, oh my gosh, okay. And I didn't know there was another series, so now I have to go buy all of those.
Books, but yeah.
With all of those projects, is there like a certain movie or what was I going to say? Basically, like the world that you would be interested in writing one of those movie tie-ins for that you haven't had a chance to work on yet?
Oh, that's interesting. I've been asked this before and I found it difficult. I've been lucky enough, I've written a Star Wars novel, then an Alien novel. I guess I'm a big John Wick fan. I'd love to write a John Wick novel. That would be good fun because John Wick's fantasy in my head. It's a action thing, but it's a fantasy world. And all three films, I think the world building in John Wick is terrific. It's really subtle, but really well done. The whole assassin thing, it's ridiculously over the top, the whole thing. But where are the police? Where
That's a good point.
The only cop you see knocks at John's door saying, "Hey, John, you working again?" He said, "Yeah, I'm working." Okay, shut the door. That's the only time you see a cop in the whole trilogy, I think.
Good point. A crooked cop.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe just off the top of my head now, maybe Mad Max. To write a Mad Max novel would be a lot of fun. And there's rumors there's rumors of another film now, isn't there, that he's been working on?
Dude, the trilogy. I'm talking just the video game. I love Marky Mark. The movie was all right. I mean, it's a movie, so it was fun. But like, I love that video game trilogy, especially the third one, where he's. I don't know if any of you guys have played the third one, but he's just this. He's this.
Matt, I'm going to interrupt you. I think you're talking about Max Payne.
Oh, I am.
Oh, right. I was so I'm not a gamer, so I thought, oh, right, there's a Mad Max trilogy on game. I didn't know that. Right,
that's hilarious. No, who gives a shit what I was about to say? Let's talk about Mad Max. Hey, I got half the title right. My apologies with that nonsense. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, where were we? Yeah, Mad Max.
No, I'm sorry. I made everyone dumber.
I think that's a great choice, though, because it's not that it's on the same level of Star Wars as far as universe goes, but it's one of those, like, it's the whole world is, post-apocalyptic, so you don't have to necessarily follow Max. I mean, of course, you'd probably be inclined to, but there's got to be so much more going on there that would be interesting to explore.
Yeah, right.
A similar movie, and it's specifically derived off of the first Mad Max, was Waterworld. I love it. I know a lot of people hate it.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun to write a novel. I know there was one, but I mean, you could do so much with that too. It's basically Mad Max on water.
Yeah, it was. I think that was probably the pitch. That was the elevator pitch for that film. Yeah. God, I haven't thought about that film for a long time. I quite enjoyed that. A lot of people didn't like it, but it was good fun.
I love Kevin Costner's great. I really enjoyed Waterworld.
Yeah.
I've tweeted about that a few times, and no one ever likes it. Erica, anything else on this?
No, those are my last questions.
Okay. How about we jump to what are you reading?
So at the moment I'm reading, so I don't reread very often, but I just, for the World Book Day a few days ago, I picked up an Ian Banks book, The Crow Road. Big Ian Banks fan. I don't know if you guys have read him or any of his sci-fi. He's a fantastic writer. Passed away a few years ago, very sadly. So I'm reading that. I'm reading a book on Vikings because it's probably one of my top 5 TV series. I fucking love Vikings, and I'm bereft because it's finished. I'm so sad. So I just picked up, a factual book about the Vikings just because I wanted to discover more about their world, and I'm enjoying that. And I'm also reading, funnily enough, who'd have thought it, I'm reading a triathlon training book. I pick up a lot of stuff like that now. So yeah. And next, I've got Stephen King's new book Later to read, which I'll read later.
Brennan read that.
It was really good. I really enjoyed it.
I love his.
As somebody, sorry, go ahead.
No, you finish. Sorry. Go.
I was going to say, as somebody who, I'm perfectly willing to admit that his post 2000 catalog is hit or miss. I really like this one.
Oh, cool. Good. That's good to hear. I like his shorter novels now. Joyland was great, and the Colorado Kid I thought was great. Probably a novel that not everyone would get away with writing, but I'm glad Stephen King could get away with writing it because it's such a clever book, I think.
Yep. Now, Tim, I don't know if you read the back cover copy on Later, but if you have not, I would recommend don't read it before you dive into the book.
Oh, okay. Right. That's good advice. I haven't. No, it's just sitting on my bedside table.
Yeah, it gives away something that, and I actually didn't read it either, but I noticed it after the fact. But It gives away something that I think that most King readers would prefer not to know going in.
Right. Really wish you told me that, asshole. Brendan told me what it was, and now I can't leave my head. So yeah, good advice.
I just figured you were never going to read it, so
eventually. Erica, what are you reading?
Yeah, so I'm trying to finish up Run, Walk, Crawl today. And then after that, I have a whole stack of honest review books that I need to look through and see what's next. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to be jumping into, but I'm hoping to find something probably closer to like the novella length and try to cruise through a couple things. My attention span has been really, really bad recently. I don't know if it's just because we hit the year mark with COVID or what's going on, but I'm having trouble focusing on anything I'm reading. So it's been a little slow.
That's interesting, Erica, because that's also partly the reason I picked up The Crow Road to read, because it's one of my favorite novels. I probably read it twice in the last 30 years. And I've been having a bit, I've been sometimes finding reading quite difficult. And I think the attention span thing is interesting, because I definitely err towards shorter books now.
Yeah.
So that I can, that's what I'm looking forward to later. Usually Stephen King's books are this thick. Now it's this thick, and great, I'll whiz through that in a few days. It might be a COVID thing, I think, but reading goes up and down with me like that as well. Some weeks, I got friends who read 80 or 100 books a year. I'm lucky if I 30, maybe 40. I've got. I don't know if any of you guys have read this, and I picked this up, The Passage.
Oh yeah.
I've heard such good stuff about it, but look at it.
For audio listeners, he just scrolled through a fucking tome.
Yeah, it's good.
And there's another 2 in the series that are just as big.
Yeah, I know. That's what puts me off. But I will read it one day.
I like fantasy series. Some of them. I shouldn't say like all fantasy series. Some of them are just too cookie cutter. But the one that I want to get into that turns me off due to how many books are in the series is Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. Isn't there like 20 something? No, not. Is there 20
I think
something?
it's 14, but
14,
they're all
okay.
like anywhere from 500 to 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that Brandon Sanderson wrote the last 2. There's one series that's 20 something books, like the Flat World or the Paper World.
Oh, Discworld.
Discworld, that's it.
Those books are a lot shorter though. Those books are like under 200 pages.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's doable then.
And
sorry, Brendan.
No, that's okay. I was gonna say they're funny as hell too. So they're very it's not. I wouldn't call it traditional fantasy.
Oh, not. Oh, God, no. And also, you don't need to read them all. You can read them all standalone.
Okay, well, that actually sounds really intriguing. Actually, Brendan, what are you reading?
Speaking of short attention spans and shorter books, I am reading. I'm partway through Irish Gothic by Ronald Kelly. It basically just in time for St. Patrick's Day. It's a bunch of short stories with kind of Celtic themes. And I got to say my favorite so far, and I can't wait to ask him if he has plans for this character, but he writes an Irish Sherlock Holmes who basically hunts cryptids, specifically Irish mythology cryptids. And it's funny. I want to read more about this character.
That sounds
yeah, no, it's really cool. I'm
funny.
also reading The Devil's Mistress by David Barclay. And this one's kind of a cool one. It takes place in the early 1700s, about 10 or so years after the Salem witch trials, but in Virginia. And it follows some of those same themes, but it really dives into the kind of mechanizations of the, I guess, political or family reasons for accusing women of being witches. Focused around this one girl who's accused. But it's interesting. I'm about 2/3 of the way through it right now.
So I am just starting tonight Anoka by Shane Hawk. It's just a collection. It's his first. It's a collection. It's indigenous horror. Really looking towards that. I've heard a lot of good things. I'm finishing up the audio. Tim, so this kind of goes with you too, of not being able to read a whole lot. For one reason or another, myself, I just don't have the free time for reading. So I listen to audiobooks. I also do text-to-speech. I consider that reading. And I can digest all the information just the same, but I can tear through books now, and I feel like Brennan for once. I just started yesterday The Invention of Sound by Chuck Palahniuk, and the first time ever I had to put a book down to take a breather after 40 minutes of listening. It gets into some stuff, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to get back to this in a day or two. It's never happened to me. I read The Girl...
That's your introduction to his work, right?
That is my introduction to his work. I've read The Girl Next Door, and I tore through that. So
I'm not going to tell you that's a tame book, but compared to some of his others, the subject material is a little bit lighter than usual.
What's his most brutal book that you've read?
I mean, as far as like violence or whatever.
Whatever struck you as the most brutal.
Because it depending on whether you want body horror or I don't know, I'd say maybe snuff or haunted, possibly even rant, and I'm sure there's others I'm forgetting, but not that Invention of Sound is light on the squeamish aspects, but nope. It's definitely not top 5 as far as, I need to put this down for a minute. Read his story Guts, and then, never sleep again. Or go in a pool.
Oh, great. So, I don't think we asked this because you haven't even released, the book's not out yet, Run, Walk, Crawl. Is it?
Yeah, it's so official release date was last Wednesday, but it's been available since like last weekend. So yeah, it's out and about now.
Caught. I didn't do my homework. Son of a bitch, Patrick. So your book's new, man. So this is a weird question to ask, but I mean you're a writer, so I'm sure you're always working on something. What are you currently working on that you can talk about, if anything?
So I'm sort of between novels, but I think I'm probably starting a new novel this week. I've got a novel that I wrote during lockdown, which is out on submission now with publishers in the States. So my agents, every time my phone rings, it's quick. Oh, no, it's not him. So that's always a nervous time. I really like this book. It's called The Last Storm. It's a climate crisis novel in a way, but quite different from Eden. It's more of a epic sort of North American road novel in a way. I think it's really cool, but I hope publishers do. And so I'm sort of working on a few bits and pieces at the moment while I tap my fingers waiting for the response on this novel. My agent's got a new novella that I've just finished, which he's going to read and let me know what he thinks we're going to do with. So I haven't sold that one yet, but I'm waiting for him to get back to me. And like I said, hoping to pitch a TV series quite soon. And that's all been set up.
That's exciting. So for you, when you're about to start a new novel, do you get kind of butterflies in your stomach still? That excitement, that the morning before Christmas, or the morning of Christmas, rather?
Yeah, it's more nervousness than excitement with me, though. Usually, it's the blank page still is a challenge for me, to be honest, and the old imposter syndrome, and oh, is this going to be any good? It's going to be crap. Yeah, I do. I like opening a file and typing the first few paragraphs. It's always a great feeling, but it's preceded by, can I really do this? Is this going to work or not? So I'll probably, I think I'm ready to start that this week, probably. Hopefully, yeah.
Nice. Well, good luck. Where can people follow you?
So I'm on Facebook and Twitter. I'm also on Instagram, but I don't get it. So I'm trying to get my wife uses Instagram a lot, and I'm trying to get her to sort of coach me. So yeah, I'm on all the social medias, but wish I wasn't. But you sort of got to be, really.
Seriously, you got to be like a Stephen King level to not be on. To not be on there.
There's not many writers I know who aren't. Some use it better than others.
You know who's never used not only social media, at least that I know of, but has done like a few interviews, is Thomas Harris. He's one of my favorite authors, and I tried. Good luck finding anything on him. I can't even find a documentary on him.
Really? That's interesting. Another one, someone who's a terrific writer and a nice guy, China Mieville. China doesn't do any social media as far as I'm aware, and he's written some amazing books. I'd love to. Well, I've sort of emailed with China on and off, but we've never met. We never seem to cross paths, unfortunately.
Well, maybe that's something to do when the world's back on its feet with vaccines, man.
Yeah, let's hope. The summer's going to rock, isn't it? Hopefully.
I hope so. I was hoping to go to Scares That Care this year, or Christopher Golden's Merrimack Valley Book Festival to actually meet Erica, Brennan, and quite a few others and record a live episode, but I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, I know Chris has passed over Merrimack to... I'm not sure he's actually organising that anymore. I mean, Chris and I are like brothers. We're good. We've written loads of novels together, and we're good mates. I'm not sure what's happening this year. I'll need to find out from him. But I think if it's going to happen this year, it probably will. I think, midsummer the vaccine program is going to be. I don't know how it's going over there. I mean, it's going fairly well here, I think, numbers wise. So okay. Look, we should. This could be another podcast, couldn't it? Let's talk about the apocalypse.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, we definitely want you to come back whenever you'd like. Do you have any final thoughts? Any final comments?
No, not really. I think we covered a lot. We could cover a lot more, but yeah, I hope. So, Run, Walk, Crawl is my first non-fiction, and it's my first self-published paperback. I've self-published a few e-books on Amazon, but and self-publishing is an endurance event in itself, I've found. But I've enjoyed it. It's been a good learning process, and I'm going to be doing. So I just bought one of these, and I'm going to be doing an audio version of it with a friend who's going to help me mixing it all and everything. So, because I had quite a few people. I don't listen to audiobooks myself, but I don't know why. I've just never really tried them. But I had quite a few people saying to me, "Oh my God, is there going to be an audiobook?" And I was like, "No, I don't think so." And then I thought about it, and why the hell not? I'm just going to do it myself and get it mixed, and might be a whole new world.
I'll tell you what, man. I didn't really listen to him until Laird Barron when we had him on earlier this year. He was pretty much the first audiobook that I heard. Blood Standard. The first in his Isaiah Coleridge trilogy. I don't know if it's a series.
I think it is a series.
Oh, it's a trilogy. Trilogy is a series, right? It's three books in a row.
Yes, you're the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah. Okay. I'm hooked.
Yeah.
I'm hooked on audiobooks.
Yeah.
But Erica, you got any final words or comments or questions?
Well, I guess one last thing now with the talk of doing an audiobook. I love when authors read their own books. I think that's incredible, and especially with nonfiction, because you can like really hear your own tone, and I think that really makes nonfiction come to life more than it would typically just reading it or having someone random voice.
That's what I was thinking. It did cross my mind trying to get a audiobook reader to do it for me, but then it would have felt a bit wrong. So I thought it either needs to be me doing it, or because a lot of friends that read the book tell me they read it in my voice, which in fiction is off-putting, but for non-fiction it's perfect, really. So I think it just it was either me doing it or nobody. So I've taken the plunge. I just gonna need a quiet house, and that doesn't happen. How the hell am I gonna read this book in my house with a barking dog and my wife working at home, my 2 kids at home? So yeah, I'm gonna have to pick my times.
I don't know, just curse at the dog, like you said, and it'll be like breaks in between chapters.
Yeah, shut the fuck up, Blue.
I would love that.
So you held up a Blue Yeti microphone, was that it?
Yeah.
So okay,
I've already plugged it in once and tried it, and yeah, I realize I'm going to have to. I mean, it's so sensitive, picking up sound from all over the place. So
I want to get a filter, a pop filter.
Right. Yeah, I noticed you had that. Yeah, I might.
They're cheap.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it just does what it says. It filters out the pops.
Right. Okay.
Brennan, any final words, thoughts, or comments?
No, I would just say thank you for taking the time to sit down with us on a Sunday afternoon for you, and for putting up with our schedule mishaps. We've been doing this for a year, and at this point, I think we have to accept we are not going to figure out how to schedule people in different time zones, never mind countries.
Well, officially, we're starting 20 minutes ago, so so I've actually gained an hour this afternoon. That's a good way to look at it.
Always with the positive. Brilliant.
Yeah. No, it's been a pleasure, guys. I've had really good fun. And thanks for having me on. It's been an honor. Thank you.
It's been awesome. I at least mentally in my head, I had a lot of authors. I'm like, one day, when we got a few episodes, I'd like that person on. You're one of them. I mean, you got plenty of books to choose from that are fucking great. So, yeah, I do hope you come up with that Han Solo erotica book, though. Him and.
Do you think it'll be Han and Chewie? I don't know.
Bestiality is a thing for some folks. Not going to knock their kink. It's not for me, but hey, if you wrote it, I'll read it. The next episode that follows this is Ron Kelly, so that would be episode 78, where we talk about Undertaker's Moon, as well as Irish Gothic and probably a whole lot of other Southern fried horror. Listeners, thank you for joining us. Tim Lebbon, sir, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much.
Erica, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And Brennan, thank you for being my co-pilot through all this, my friend. Has it been a pleasure? It's been pleasurable. I feel like I'm why'd I repeat myself? I don't like that. If I had an editor, I would have cut out 2 of those pleasures. But if you have many podcasts to choose from, thank you for listening to Dead Headspace. Stay tuned for episode 78 with Ronald Kelly next Monday. Have a lovely time, everyone.